All right, hello everybody who's listening to this. Do apologize about that. The live stream went down. I am just going to invite everybody back into this new version now. If I can have the add link. Okay. Oops. I think I sent out the link for people to join the actual video chat. Hello.
Hey, buddy.
This is going extremely well.
I know, it's great.
This is like the opening of Brady Bunch where all the faces start popping up on the screen.
What's the new link for YouTube so I can put it on my channel?
I've just sent it out. Let me just can I type into the chat? Yes, I can type into the chat. There we go.
Now how do I see the chat? Oh, there we go.
Yay! Right, I'm work out this mobile app.
Right, I'm staying on. I do apologise, you can't see my beautiful face, but I'm going to stay on voice only, just because I think it was my webcam that was turning my webcam trying to stream that was turning my computer off. Now, if we stay on now and it turns off with just audio, then bollocks to it. But I think it was just the video, so I'm staying on audio only.
I think we're all good.
So hopefully we can right.
All right.
Sounds on this episode.
Okay, we are live. So I do apologize if anybody is watching this live. And,
You apologize if they're watching it live.
Yeah, or if you're watching this back on YouTube later, and why you're wondering why you're staring at a blank screen. Basically, what happened was we had a version of it open, and then my computer kept dying, and obviously without the host, the stream stopped streaming, and I came back, and I'm not sure what was the last thing they all heard before it went off. It was probably when I was talking, I think.
We can check, right?
Oh right, is it loaded up as a YouTube video?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I'm preparing to play all the themes and everything and try and talk through them.
Hey, look. Now, hopefully, it will work. Fingers crossed.
Now probably my computer will crash and the piano fucking.
Oh, I just got an invite from Steven.
I think he's made another one, so maybe invite him to this. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, I guess all you see is you on here. I haven't used this before. You can't see my face.
No, look, it worked perfectly back in June, I promise. When we did it for the X-Men one, it worked perfectly. Just this time, for some reason, my computer is not having it. It keeps turning itself off. I think it's overheating. So that's why I've switched to not being on camera now.
Okay, well, that's fine. I've got the perfect face for this anyway, so no problem.
Yeah, you guys, stick your cameras back on, because God knows I need to see somebody, but I'll just stay on voice just to make sure this doesn't die again. Right.
Ah, the dog is
The
back.
dog's back.
Yay!
Hey guys.
Everyone's happy.
Right, okay, everybody is back. We are live again. Right, okay. I apologise for anybody who was watching that live or watching this back on YouTube. As I say, the stream died and we had to make another one. So now I'm just staying on audio only to make sure it doesn't happen again, just because I think it was my webcam that was doing it. So anyway, do we know where we were?
We were talking to Declan about the composition.
Okay, right. Declan, why don't we go to you? You were talking about the music for the series, and I was putting over how good you were, but why don't we just go straight to you?
Declan!
Yeah. Right, so I found out about the series on the previous Hangout where we're talking about the X-Men project. I think Omri, Natalie, and Steve were on there. And you mentioned it, and straight away I thought, hang on, I kind of fancy doing Batman now. So I think I sent Carl a message on Facebook straight after saying, please, can I do it? Just, I pretty much started sketching ideas about 2 months before I kind of had a chance to listen to any of the voices or anything. And I think Carl liked the theme and started 2 months later. Theme-wise, I kind of said to Carl, I didn't want to go too modern, I didn't want to go too, really, I can't think of words, not modern. So kind of that cross between Elfman's work on Tim Burton's Batman 1989 and not too much of the Zimmer stuff from The Dark Knight, but kind of get the middle. And I realised that that was Shirley Walker's work on the animated series. So I kind of heavily referenced that aesthetically in the theme, just kind of keeping it really simple and hummable. Because looking through the actual book itself, it's very timeless in a sense. It's not, you can tell it's not like set in very far in the past, as well as it's not, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of timeless. It's the 20s, but it's also modern. Yeah, that definitely comes from kind of the Danny Elfman, Tim Burton
yeah, exactly.
version of it. Absolutely.
So, kept that and then added a couple of modern elements just because that's how I write, basically. So when it came to themes such as Holiday the Killer, I didn't want to kind of have that dark, foreboding kind of theme. I just wanted 2 drum hits to basically stick out like a sore thumb, kind of do what kind of Fargo did in the TV series, where it's just so different, the music, from everything else, that you know that character's something special. Then the Joker, I was paying a bit of homage to Danny Elfman in the way that he wrote a waltz for the Joker in the 1989 film, so I thought, why not kind of write a lullaby for the Joker? So, sounds really creepy alone, but it kind of works with John's just amazing performance. The second I kind of heard it, I do one run through where I just I listen to everything that's happened and kind of just play over the top of it, and it just kind of stopped me in my tracks straight away just as soon as I heard the performance. Could have sworn I was listening to Mark Hamill. It's just really good, and then of course Omri's amazing work as Batman and everyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said, there was just scenes where it was like, oh my god, when like all the performance was hitting the notes, and the music was perfect, and it was just like, oh, the sound effects were all working well, and yeah, I'd listen back to it, but like, who made this? Like, you know, like, who put this together? Just because of the amount of talent that was in this thing. And I tell you, the #1 comment I've had on the iTunes list, or I've had it on the reviews in general of the series, has been, I didn't know this was not an official production. So take that for what it's worth. That's what everybody thinks. So
I mean, I think there's no way to put this, but to stress that Declan's work, I think, is just so exceptional on this. I mean, he was composing original music
I second that
every
one.
episode. Such quantity and such quality as well. I mean, I was just absolutely blown away, and I think, I mean, okay, we're all voice actors and we're contributing to this, but he's writing all this music, and then he's actually playing it back, and then he's mixing it. The amount of work involved is just astronomical, and the quality. I mean, Declan and I, we did have a lot of Twitter love throughout the show.
I think
A lot. I mean, it was a little bit.
Batman needs his theme, so Batman needs his theme music, so he's got to be in love with his composer. So whether it's Hans Zimmer with Christian Bale, or whether it's Danny Elfman with Michael Keaton, or Shirley Walker with Kevin Conroy, I mean, the music is absolutely the beating heart, because in the lulls between performances, the music is filling in those gaps. It's creating the atmosphere, the tone. And it just from the opening theme, I always normally I always skip over opening credits for any sort of series, but I always listen to the theme at the beginning of this. It's just, it really amps you and gets you excited for it, and
absolutely.
It holds on to you the entire way through. There is not a moment of rest there. It's fantastic all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, Declan, you could talk to this to yourself, but there was kind of two themes that was part of one theme. There was the drum beating da 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 da, and that was the opening theme. Which the fact that I could just hum that off my head shows that you did an amazing job of making a theme. That is now in my head as much as the da 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 da. So well done with that. But then there was also the one that I used for the end credits, which was all part of the same piece. Which was the part where it went into the more of the Danny Elfman kind of piano stuff. And it was, I cut it up in the edit, obviously, but it was the same piece when you sent it to me. And yeah, the fact that both are so kind of memorable, and it just became part of the language of the show. I think when it's opened up and it had that drum beat and it went into the the battle logo across and it went into all the pictures and the names, and it gave the credits such a feel. And then obviously when you go into your soft part of it, that was just perfect when it came up with the chapter thing and all that kind of stuff. It just, your music helped as things when this all works properly in film and television stuff like that, when it works. And it's crazy that we're thinking about visuals for an audio drama, but that's a whole other side of it, which I'm sure I'll get into at some point, that this became kind of a motion comic type thing on YouTube. But the fact that when it all came together, your music was making my editing better, in that your music was inspiring the visuals that I was creating, and it created that opening credit sequence, which I'm so happy with overall. And then obviously that kind of set the language for how the performances and the editing and everything was overall, just hearing those themes. So,
yeah, music plays an important part in the edit. I mean, I find that if you have a great piece of music, you can match the images to the beat and rhythm, and it really felt like there was a great synchronicity between the music and the images. Everything flowed so beautifully. There isn't a moment where it staggers. Everything seems to be working so beautifully in conjunction.
It just raises everything up, and the fact that also you had to do two versions for the audio exclusive and then the video version as well.
I was just going to talk to that, Omri, if I can get in.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was just going to say, yeah, Carl, can you talk to that? How you were able to so expertly match our voices up with the video?
That was a case of, obviously, when I wrote the script, I had the book in front of me and was copying it down. And unless this didn't make the first chat, I'll just repeat the thing where I was literally having the book in front of me and copying it down. With just looking at it and looking at it, type it. And there was some times where I'd go back and proofread it, and it all looked good, and I'd send it off. And then Omri would send it back with some extra lines that I was like, and once I'd read the book, I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess I missed that line.
Friggin' actors, huh?
Yeah,
God, actors.
it was a case
The
of
worst.
that. When that happens, I'm like, thank God, because he knows and I know that if that had happened, because when I started matching it up to the visuals, it became if that had been just the audio version, it was like, yeah, whatever, we don't need that line. Obviously, I didn't think the line was important enough to put in the script. But then when you start adding it to the visuals, then you've got the speech bubbles there, and people are like, well, why didn't he say the thing that was in that speech bubble? So then, obviously, if Omri hadn't have done that, and Ray and whoever else caught this when it happened, and there was a couple of times where there was one occasion where Rex, who played Jim Gordon, he missed one line, and it was literally just one word, no. But the scene didn't work without it, so I had to send him a message to get him to just get on the mic and record no. Send it to me. It's like he had to do a whole recording session just to say no.
It's all in the day's work.
Absolutely, and if that had just been on the audio version, it wouldn't have mattered, but once you start matching it to the visuals, you do have to start following it more faithfully. I mean, in the first episode, Natalie recorded the Catwoman line where she spins around and kicks him and goes, I don't have time for this, or whatever the line is. She said it in a very calm way in the original version. I put that out on the audio version. But then when it came to the video version and you had to look at it and she was there flying through the air, I had to get her to re-record that. So it was more kind of in line with what they were seeing. And there were several times where that happened, where re-recordings had to happen just to match it up. But I think the fact that I followed the book helped. And then obviously from, I guess, chapter 2 onwards, and definitely as the later chapters went on, I would start writing it with it in mind. So if I'd add any extra kind of narration and stuff, I would have it in my head, okay, that part will not be there in the video version. So what I'd do is I'd edit the audio version in full, save the track, save the master, which is basically what I do is I make each scene individually, mix it down, put it into a one audio project, put all the scenes together, add the credits, add the all that kind of stuff, and then mix it down all as one track. Then when it came to the video version, I'd have to go in, and if it was a simple thing, I could maybe just kind of chop it and cut it out and drag the music with it and make it overlap and make it work. If it was more of a case of there was a lot of narration and the words were going in and out of dialogue, then I'd have to literally go back in and re-edit the scene completely. And there was a couple of times where that happened, especially in action scenes early on. I think in the later action scenes, I became more aware of the fact that I'd have to do that, so I started doing less description for the action. It was just like, I punch her, as opposed to, I punch her, her face flies off, and she goes to the ground.
I like your imitation, by the way.
Because that was one thing that you, because I think we worked closer on this project more than we do on all of them. We all go back and forth, but I think me and you, especially Omri, we're going back and forth on email on a couple of things on this. Where, like in the first episode, there was one part where because it was the first script, so I wasn't sure what I was doing at that point. To be honest, it's the pilot episode, I guess.
Yeah.
I had wrote that scene where he attacks the guards, and it was very wordy. He was like saying exactly everything that he did, but then you suggested just doing it as I punch them, I throw the batarang, I throw the grenades, and it just works so much better for the pace. So you had a big part in that as well.
I think it was just like it doesn't last long, and then you just hear the sound effects. Yeah.
It also works for the character too, because Batman is a man of few words.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to bring you guys in there because obviously it's mostly been me and Omri and Declan, so I want to bring you other guys in here. Let's go into more specifics. Why we've now got the stream working and it's not going to die on us, and we finally got into a rhythm of conversation. John, I'll go to you first. Obviously, we spoke about how you came up with the voice. When it came to the dialogue, I think as I read it in my head, maybe this is just my bias coming from growing up with the animated series. When I read the dialogue, I almost thought, because this was written in the late 90s, that maybe when Jeff Loeb wrote it, he wrote it with Mark Hamill in mind, because the language just seemed to work so well with that voice. I can't imagine, Jack Nicholson's Joker or any of those kind of things. So, I mean, for yourself, did you find that? Did you find it easy to do the rhyme of the words? And
Yeah, honestly, when I read Long Halloween about a decade ago. It's difficult for me to read a comic and not imagine Kevin Conroy's voice in my head as Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, and so on and so forth. So in this particular case, yeah, I definitely heard Mark Hamill's voice. It's weird. I can actually pick up a comic from the '80s before Mark Hamill played that role and still hear his voice in my head. I think that no matter how many great performances we've gotten from so many great actors in this role, I think that he has the definitive voice and laugh. I just think everything about him, everything about his performance works. One of my other inspirations for the role, actually outside of the Joker, was Andrew Scott as Jim Moriarty on Sherlock.
Oh, wow.
He has this weird thing about him that I didn't do his voice at all, but obviously he's got a very thick Irish accent. But there's something that he does where he'll be randomly saying something very melodic and soft, and then he breaks into this sort of psychosis, and you realize that this guy's completely unhinged. So with the Joker, I would try actually to break up one sentence into two different beats. So I would start off with a little bit of insanity and end it with a little more playfulness and mischief. I find that doing that just shows just how completely unpredictable he is. I always felt that the Joker as a character is most intriguing because you don't know whether he's going to kiss you or kill you. So and also when he's speaking with Batman, I try to make it a little flirty because the Joker is the Joker's in love with Batman. Clearly,
I mean, they love each other.
It's a loving relationship.
The dialogue, especially in that New Year's episode, supports that as well.
That's
Like, he's like, do I get a kiss at midnight? You know?
Yeah, that's my favorite. That is my favorite line. Do I get a little kiss? And imitating him getting choked and saying, "I guess I'll take that as a no." That was probably my favorite moment because there's nothing more like the quintessential relationship between Batman and the Joker than they're in a life and death situation. They're literally crashing to the earth, locked in combat, and the Joker stops to make a flirty remark, and of course Batman responds by choking him. It's you can't get more perfect than that. So
I mean, I think that's my favorite episode.
Definitely.
Yeah, because it's just you can't beat the Joker. There's a reason that The Dark Knight and the '89 movie are the two highest grossing movies because you can't beat Batman and the Joker. They're always going to be, the rest of the characters are fantastic, and he has a superb villain gallery, and I love them all. But it's just something when Joker and Batman are on screen and especially that episode, I think you get, because episode 3 is more Batman chasing him, and I don't think they really ever share a scene together. In the fourth one, it's finally sort of that classic. You can almost imagine that being an episode of the animated series. Where he's grappling onto the plane and pulling himself up and put the plane down. It's like, maybe later. Throws him off.
That was one of the hardest ones for me as well, actually, that episode.
Right, because of the action.
Because of the yell. Like, how do you do Batman, like, in danger?
Or falling off an airplane.
Yeah, falling off an airplane.
You see, I actually found that easy because Mark Hamill does these very distinct noises when he gets punched all the time. Like he manages to even make his face getting punched in sound comical and interesting. So like I would just imitate because I'm used to hearing him he always gets his teeth knocked out on the animated series. So I'm just used to hearing those grunts and noises. So I just emulated that as much as possible. But I can imagine that coming from my bedroom probably freaked my roommates out a little bit. But other than that, it was a good time.
Low with the laughter. Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing I did want to bring up in terms of your performance, and definitely with Omri as well. There was this, but the two that really come to mind are you, and then on the X-Men series with Rex. There is distinct sounds that Joker and in X-Men Wolverine make when they're doing things, and there's just that extra little bit of. You're not just reading lines of the character. When you're doing a reaction to the character, you're not just going, you're actually doing the character, and it sounds like that's how the character sounds. And I think maybe that comes from the fact of, with those two characters in particular, and I'm crossing the streams here talking about both series, but I think, Omri, you had that as well with Batman. I think there was several characters where I'm just not thinking of where that was a case as well, where the screams were in the character's voice, but Joker especially, you're right. I think it's because, again, his voice comes from animation, So it's always got to have that. How many times have you got to record grunts and yells and all that kind of stuff for animation and games and things? So.
Yeah. I actually, and taking a cue from Mark Hamill too, I actually didn't. I was never sitting down doing this. I was standing up the whole time because I have to. I was physically animated. I also talk through my teeth when I'm doing the performance too because he's very toothy. And so I kind of wish that I filmed myself doing it. I would never look at the footage, but I kind of wish that I filmed myself.
We'd stick it up on the YouTube channel.
I
look like a complete
Jason
psycho.
did a little filming of himself doing it, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go across. Tyree and Kevin, I think you two had a different kind of difficult task in that your characters have never had a voice before. I think with these guys, it's like, well, Batman. There's been 5 Batmans and the Joker. I think these guys have never made the translation, so it's a case of you've got to come up with a completely original voice. So Tyree, why don't you go first and speak to that point of just kind of where you got the voice from more so than Batman content.
Okay. I feel that it's actually kind of an advantage having a character that's never had a voice before because you can just completely go with whatever feels natural and you don't have the intimidation factor of other people's interpretations that seem like spot on and absolutely perfect to like hinder you from trying what you want to try. I sort of generated the voice just, I don't know, I must have tried like 10, 20, like 30 different readings of those first lines you gave me, trying to see what worked. And I remember my brother, like, he was no help. He was just like, just watch The Godfather, it will come to you. I was like, okay, I know I'm training as a method actor, but that's not how that works. You know that, right?
There's also no character in The Godfather that's even remotely similar to Sophia.
Yeah, exactly.
Sophia is very unique.
No, she's such a cool character.
It sort of came because I've recently become obsessed with Gotham. Like, they're in their mid-season break of, like, season 2, and I'm loving that show. I love it. Like, just Gotham as a character is fantastic, with or without Batman. And, like, watching and listening to the characters and their interplay and stuff sort of helped inform my character and helped me find an organic-sounding voice.
Cool. I've got a love-hate relationship with that show, but
But like,
It's a very schizophrenic show.
The mob stuff was fantastic, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
The stuff with Falcone and absolutely. Even I didn't call him Falcone, but it's a different thing entirely. But
that show kind of put me in my place a bit because I remember one of my major hang-ups with Batman, even though I love Batman, was, well, surely all of this is happening because Batman arriving has been a catalyst for all of this crap, but then the show Gotham put me in my place. It's like, actually, no, Gotham's been this fucked up, like,
well, I mean, that depends on it depends on the version. I've always liked it where, yes, they've always had the mob stuff and that going on.
Yeah.
I love the idea, and it's even said in this series.
Yeah.
The very much the line of Gordon saying to him, "Oh, you ever thought about maybe?" I think it's episode 3. He says, "You ever thought about the fact that maybe you've inspired all these freaks?" And he's like,
"No."
Definitely in every universe where Batman is a part of it, that is like the mobs were all there, but the super criminals, I'm going to shoot 10 people and laugh about it. Yeah, they are definitely.
Yeah, it's always
this idea of he started it and they're imitating him to match him kind of thing. Sorry, carry on.
I mean, yeah, it's sort of like it's always been there, but Batman on the scene acted like a sort of steroid for the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, anything else you want to add while you've got a moment to speak in between us all?
No, not really. Not a whole lot to say.
It's cool. I just felt bad that people were sitting in the background. I wanted to include people. But I will say this. Tyree plays Storm on our X-Men series, and this is the series that found her. She auditioned for this series, and then it just so happened I was like, hey, I've got a female part coming up, an African-sounding part. Would you be interested? And then she ended up being a lead in that series. And spoiler alert, Sophia is not dead. And if
Yeah.
even though she fell, so if we do Dark Victory, which we probably will because we're getting that many requests for it, or if and when we do Dark Victory, she is the main bad guy in that one.
Woohoo.
Yeah, she's got a nice big neck brace on there, if I'm not mistaken.
She's like
Oh yeah,
bald
she's
and-
like all red ahead.
She's the chieftain now. She takes over the Falcone family.
Oh,
so,
you
yeah.
read ahead. You read ahead to this, did you?
No, not to this, but I read ahead for Long Halloween when I saw that you had the pot going, and I like quickly ran to like Forbidden Planet to like go get a copy. I was like, I have to read this like right now.
Absolutely. All right, Kevin. Same sort of thing to you. Vernon was a character that was just there on the page.
Well, in my case, I'm surrounded by all these rich, baritoned actors, in certain shades, and how they talk with Omri as Batman and Bruce Wayne. And I think the only exception was John as the Joker, where, you had sort of a, distinctive higher voice. So it was kind of easy for me. I looked at Vernon. I believe Carl and I talked about that at one point, how to play him. There was another character that I voiced, if I'm not mistaken, was for X-Men. That was kind of wimpy. Again, I don't have a wimpy voice, at least I hope not. And so I, in the end, just kind of pinched my nose together and said, "Hello, Mr. Maroney, you have a visit," that kind of thing. Kind of worked on that for a little bit. And
if he was in a movie, he'd be played by Rick Moranis if it was in the 80s.
Right. Yeah, and we did talk about that. It was, a character voice I had never, done before, but this is, part of our business is to, adapt and, portray different characters as best we can. So I gave that a shot, and, I think the voice kind of mirrored the face. Of the character, he looked like a wimp too, and
that's his whole storyline. Is he's the weasel who sells Harvey out, and
exactly, and so that ended up working out, and added just another dimension for me. I'm pretty much a straight voice actor, as in read the script, lay it down, get the money, and that's fine, with my own voice. So this was a good exercise, and just again, with the name recognition for Batman, who wouldn't want to be in this? So, I was really glad to develop a character, and I just hope he came across the way he was supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And to speak to that point, with you, Kevin, a lot of people will recognize your voice a lot because the reason I had you do such a different character is because you tend to do a lot of the extra voices on X-Men and Batman and stuff like that. Like you.
Well, not by choice, Carl. Hopefully, you'll give me a lead role next time.
Well, I basically what it is I'm always trying to fit you in because you are a great ambassador for these stuff. Since you joined the group, nobody has been more. Omri definitely, and Steve and everybody's done their gone out there and put it out there. But you certainly have brought a lot of voice actors to our group, who that you met from your group and that kind of thing, and you're always retweeting with the posts and stuff like that. And especially since you have been these smaller voices, the fact that you have been such a champion of it has been really appreciated by me, so thank you for that.
Well, right back at you, man. And while we're talking about that, thank you for bringing Carol on. We kind of knew that she was with her problems and all that, wasn't going to be with us for much longer. But I really appreciate you bringing her in and letting her show you and the rest of the listeners just what a wonderful actress she is. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. For those who don't know, Carol, who did a voice for Mariko in our latest episode of X-Men, passed away a couple of months ago. I only just heard about it like yesterday, I think it was, but it happened a couple of months ago, and it was a case of I was sending people messages back in October when it happened, and Mary and all the other people from that group were responding and sending me lines of things, and nobody ever mentioned it. So and then I just was on her Facebook. It just came up on my timeline where her husband was posting up saying it's been 3 months. I was like, oh my god. So I feel bad that I only just found out about it, but I am very sorry that has happened. Obviously.
It sucks.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Yeah. But you gave her a chance to shine, man, and I again really appreciate it. The smaller voices, the utility players, they definitely have a role too. They definitely make a production shake and move.
Richer.
Because that was an incredibly not to go off on track on X-Men, but that was an incredibly hard voice to find because it was obviously an ethnicity and that kind of thing. So, but no, to the point of to lighten it up a bit, to the point of you being the different parts. Again, it was just a case of you've been such a good ambassador, and you do have a good voice. It's just you have a very distinctive voice. So I was trying to get you to play against type, just so I could have you in it again, but without doing the same voice that you are for many extra characters throughout the series. Because otherwise, people are like, "Wait a minute, why is that god also that guy? And why is that guy?" Again, and you've been Juggernaut, and you've been now Vernon and things like that. So happy to give you roles wherever suitable. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Righty. So Steve, you haven't spoken to all. What about you? When we're talking about this, about how influences on the characters' voices. I mean, you spoke about Michael Caine earlier on, but certainly looking at the pictures, and you more than anybody, I remember you sending me the message saying you'd read through the book and you'd picked out characters, and I remember. And I will own up to this. I remember there being a long process of you trying out for about 10 different characters. Because it was a case of, you sent me the Penguin, and then I realized the Penguin didn't have any lines in the series. You sent me the Scarecrow, and then I found somebody who just did a little bit crazier version. And it was always a case of, my God, Steve is good, but this other guy's just got a little just something. And then I was like, I've got to find you something, because you've been such a big part of this whole thing and the supporter of this whole thing, and I knew that you're such a good voice actor. And then I remembered your velvety tones, and I was like, wow, you'd be a really good Alfred. And at the same time, you sent that whole poem where you did the Mad Hatter. You were also Solomon Grundy. I've failed to mention that. You recorded that. Now, when I say you were Solomon Grundy, you recorded the line "Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday" about 12 times, and that's what I used throughout the series.
It's the I am Groot of the Batman Long Halloween universe.
Or the Gene of X-Men.
Yeah, tell me about it. You sent me the lot, you saying it in every different type of way, and then I had that for the entire series. But then, of course, the characters that you really got to stick your meat into, Mad Hatter was the way that Jeff Loeb wrote Mad Hatter and Scarecrow in this series, and Joker as well to a point. They were always rhyming or singing or doing poems, and I think definitely Joker later on sort of goes more into being sort of more Joker in the 4th episode. But Mad Hatter and Scarecrow, I don't think they appear without talking in rhyme. And that was a great point.
And the text itself is also written so interestingly.
Yeah.
As a comic. Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously that was fun to hear you do that. You sounded a lot like the Mad Hatter from the Disney version of Alice in Wonderland, I have to say. So you obviously did your research for that one.
Yeah, I did. I did do my, little Mad Hatter Google searches and search for many clips and things like that. And actually, the game character is, despite he's given grittiness in the Arkham games, he still has this very whiny Disney-esque sound to him, and I just figured that was the way that they wanted to go with the Mad Hatter because he's never a key villain. He's never someone that really gives Batman a run for his money. He always just gets punched in the face and then that's it. Maybe a little bit of drama and then just a punch and done. He's never a big feature. And he's always whining as well. He's always blaming Batman.
Yeah, I think in the Arkham games especially, I think it's a case of he did the trippy sequence, but Scarecrow got there first kind of thing.
Yeah. So, for the Mad Hatter, that was where that came from. My favourite actually was Solomon Grundy. I mean, despite Alfred's lovely, touching moments with Bruce, that was really my favourite because it was he'd just shout down the mic, Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, born on a Monday, born on a Monday, and do that and do all those various types, and they go, there you go, Cal. Sit back and relax. And that's it. I love that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think the I Am Groot. If it's good for Vin Diesel, it's good for you.
Exactly.
But to speak to that point of the Alfred thing, some of the best acting of the series, and there was superb overall, but some of the best, my favourite moments were Alfred and Bruce in that scene where they're talking about his father and that kind of thing. So credit to both of you on that one. You sounded like you had chemistry, even though you were recording your lines, months apart and separate in other places. And
Oh yeah.
That was a rough episode, the dad one. That was a hard one because Thomas Wayne as well. Remember you told me to do that, and sort of going, okay, how am I gonna do this now? And that was hard, but I agree with you. Some of those quieter moments were really very nice. Batman's such a hard character, no emotions, and so there's an episode where I have the Poison Ivy Venom as well, and falling in love, and there's some weird stuff, and then there's the Scarecrow madness, and where he goes back to Crime Alley, and those were some really touching, beautiful moments. So the quieter moments were also really nice to do in the series, and a challenge too, and a nice change.
Something I will admit about that episode that kind of went on behind the scenes was I have read this book, but I haven't read it in a long time, and when I have read it, I've mostly read the first couple of chapters because I think that, it starts and ends really well, and the other stuff is more kind of self-contained. So I remember very much the first chapter, but when we got to this chapter, I was like, why the hell is Bruce freaking out? Like, as I did a message, like, why is he freaking out this much? And then I had to go back, and because it was very subtly done in the comic, I was like, oh, because of the Scarecrow toxin.
Yeah.
And I had to slap myself on the floor, and I was like, duh. That was an entire level on the Arkham games. I will admit a case of I probably should have read it through a couple of times because I think what happened, especially later on, was I was literally just being a typist. I was literally just looking at it and typing it down, literally word for word, and not really until I got to the editing. The editing was where the emotion came into it because I obviously got to hear the performances and that kind of thing and realise what kind of the meaning behind the lines were, I think. Because as a writer, copying is very different to... And there was times where obviously I added my own flair to scenes and stuff with the narration and stuff. And I think it's very different when you're writing your words and they're coming from your characters in your head as opposed to, right, here's some text and I'm just going to write it down. I think some of that was lost in translation later on, and I'm glad that you were there to go, no, this is why. This was the case. That's why he freaked out in that episode. And of course, you told me, and I felt like a complete idiot afterwards. But no, a fantastic job. And another thing I will say about that, and just because I don't know whether this made the recording last time, was there was one scene where you two literally had the opposite lines to what are in the book, and I just decided to keep it because I was just like, hey, it works. Like, I think it was the line where he goes, I can't help but thinking what might have happened if, and I think Bruce said that and walked out, and Alfred then carried on from it. But in our version, Alfred says the entire thing, and I think it works just as well. So I was just like, well, I'll just keep it.
Happy accidents.
Absolutely. There was a couple of times where that happened. Absolutely. Right, I'll open it up to a free-for-all chat in a second. But before that, Declan, you said you wanted to go through a few tracks, so why don't you go ahead and touch on your favourite stuff from the series? I know there's, 12 episodes worth of it, and this spanned a whole year. But,
Oh, and just because Declan won't do it, or maybe he will, but his album is available online on iTunes, and you can buy it, and it's amazing. So buy it, because it's awesome.
I'll put the link up in the description.
Thank you. Well, you basically spoke about a lot of the scenes there, such as, of course, Carl mentioned a while ago about how the theme I sent in was split into two parts, and there was the main title and then the end title. It's like, I'll get piano up quickly, see how well this goes, and see if I can actually play it properly.
Oh, wow, cool. We're actually going to have a sample piece here.
Right, so basically the main theme goes...
Yep.
So that was just like the main sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So that evolved into the main theme, and then there was kind of different rhythms, such as the rooftop scene, which is the first time where Gordon, Dent, and Batman are all together. We introduced
One of my absolute favourite scenes. I know I keep saying that, but that one definitely. Yeah.
Love that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, so we introduced the idea of this kind of downward spiral kind of rhythm thing that's been played on piano strings and everything. It's just... Right, I'll play that higher up. So it's kind of that, and then we introduce another part of the main theme, which goes... So it's that, obviously, and of course, John's performance as a Joker, I knew he stood out straight away, so I kind of wanted to stand back and give Joker a kind of calmer theme, so I kind of gave him a lullaby that goes like this. Then we go back into the main theme. Just kind of that kind of thing, just staying out the way.
It's incredibly eerie.
It's so good. It's so good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Then, some of the most fun I had in the series writing the Scarecrow and Mad Hatter scenes, because it's just...
Yeah, that's where the music went great, because the performances were so crazy
Going back
with Stephen and Sean, and then you were going right in there for it with them. Like, it cut to, it was like, Arkham Asylum, and you was like, Durr! I'm like, Jesus!
Going back to my horror film roots there. Really, really dark stuff. Then, what are the other things? Any other scenes you can think
Well,
of?
the main one I immediately sprang to mind was the last scenes, because the music really takes over. Obviously, we knew that was going to be the case because it's kind of a monologue of Jeannie as Gilda explaining basically the entire series and going through it. And we obviously knew that there was going to be a lot of music behind that part, but you decided to do something extremely different. I was expecting maybe a version of maybe the Harvey Dent theme played on piano or some strings or something. But what you did was kind of this cool sort of end of a CW show, sort of maybe like a romantic comedy kind of thing, but sort of a twisted, dark version of it, where it was kind of like you're getting this... it almost had kind of the same sort of rhythm as the main theme, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But it was on guitar.
Yeah, I knew at the end it was kind of... I didn't want to leave it kind of dark. I kind of make it completely different and kind of... like it wouldn't fit, but it does fit at the same time. So I went to drums and a guitar because nothing says Batman like a drum kit and a guitar.
Well, that's what you said. You sent it to me and you said, I've done something very different and it's not like me to Lisa Fight Band. I was like, okay, cool. And then I added it in. And then there's just those moments where the scene works, but I was like, okay, the scene works. And then you add the music in and I'm like, oh my God. That was one of those moments, especially that end scene where it was like just the way that the music builds and then goes into the end theme, and yeah, God, yes.
Yeah. The great thing about the music, I think, is the fact that it's the Long Halloween. Whilst it's complete madness, it's a tragedy. Like the story is a very, very great tragedy. Like, you are witnessing the rise and fall of Harvey Dent in this very long, insane story with all these, you're basically on the cusp of something incredible that's about to happen with essentially the rise of all the costumed villains and how it's a big change in the city, and the music reflects that. You literally feel like you're on the cusp of something absolutely great and terrible, so there's always that element of tragedy and sadness in there, but a great deal of is that foreboding march. There's also a little bit of hope in there because Batman's always about, you know, he's always triumphant in the darkness, so that theme particularly resonates.
Yeah, I kept the Dent theme purposely very simple, and for a laugh I tried to make it play forward play the same forward and in reverse, just to kind of get that duality musically. That was completely accidentally. I only noticed afterwards, and I kind of thought, oh, nice. Just kind of
Yep, the happy accidents again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, just awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, just the riffs on that stuff, and you know, knowing when to come in with the music and when not to come in with the music, and there was times again like with that scene with the Scarecrow and the Mad Hatter where maybe I didn't have music in mind. I was just like, okay, if he wants to put music in, he can put music in. It's up to him. But then once you have it added in, it's like, wow, I can't imagine that scene without the music now. Because it just adds, like when that lightning strikes during that scene and then the music comes in, the music almost becomes part of the sound effects.
Yeah, I think I've got the track here now. Try and get it up.
Okay.
Come on. Don't be funny.
At least we got the stream working tonight. So thank you, people who have stuck with us to get to this stuff where we're actually doing what we said we were going to do and talking about this thing instead of just going online going, God damn it, the thing's closing down, you know, the entire time as I'm switching between two different devices. You may not see my face anymore, but at least it's all working now, which is the main thing.
Well, speaking of happy accidents, and this is another sort of funny happy accident, Batman and Joker obviously have this very strange relationship. John and I actually play brothers on the X-Men show.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just a little funny little sort of trivia element that I think actually is quite funny when you think about it compared to the Batman-Joker relationship.
Yeah, all symbiotic relationships in some form or fashion.
And I will say this, since Natalie isn't here, I don't know who's been cast as Lois Lane in that Superman show you're doing, but I wish it was her, just because it was hilarious that you went from being Jean and Scott to being Catwoman and Batman. It's like you're ticking off every iconic comic book couple.
And then we went to Superman and Lex Luthor, actually. Yeah, so I don't know what's left after that. I guess Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom will be after the fact.
Can't be worse than that movie.
Film.
I think we'll try. We'll try to make something else.
Yeah. You got the track loaded up there, Declan?
Yeah. So, kind of constantly, the rhythm underneath it with kind of the aleatoric stuff. Oh, that's not right. Yeah, happy piano. That piano stuff. That's not it. So you kind of go from this, and then we get into the kind of hits and everything. So this is the right one. It's really, really dark orchestral stuff. So there's a constant rhythm underneath it, kind of saying that you can't stop what's happening. It's just going on no matter what. Just keep it normal at first, and then we let the chaos go.
Yeah. Awesome stuff.
Just completely random rhythms, and you have no idea just actually what's going on and that kind of stuff. Is the relationship between them that they're not in sync with each other, Scarecrow and Mad Hatter. They're just one's going completely off on one, one's just there for the party, I guess.
One's talking about pie and the other's talking about tea, and somehow they're going to rob a bank, and it's all very crazy.
I don't know if different if you thought about this, Declan, but to me that reminded me a lot, that scene about the Rites of Spring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought about that element when it was, which incidentally caused a riot in Paris when it premiered. But
wow. Wasn't that one of the tracks that influenced the Star Wars music? From what I hear, wasn't it the? I heard that was maybe the Jawa theme, maybe. I think that was the temp track for the Jawa theme, and that's why it sounds a lot like it anyway. I was listening to a composer thing, very much like what Declan's doing about such things. All right then. So why don't since everybody's here, why don't I just open it up to free-flowing conversation? Anything anybody wants to bring up about the show? Go ahead.
Just a little coincidence. I don't know if you saw a post of mine earlier last year or late last year, but I actually got to meet the real, the film Salvatore Maroni, Eric Roberts.
Cool.
Yeah, and earlier this year he came and did an appearance out in Pensacola, and I got to meet him. Told him about the audio series. Told him that I was actually playing, Vernon Fields to his Maroni, and he thought that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great.
And complete, just to drop this tidbit in since he's not here, Jason, who plays Charles Xavier on the X-Men series, is actually Maroni in this series, which is it's just so weird. It's such a credit to voice actors when you do, and there was a lot of that during this series where I'd post up, "Hey, I need a random voice," and then Jeannie and Omri would record me "Happy Birthday to You," and just so happens that was when it became public domain as well. So thank God for that. Yeah, when they basically he recorded it, Omri recorded it in like 5 different voices of different thugs, and then you were the Irish thugs during the second episode and things like that.
Yeah.
When I was putting together the end credit sequence of the very last episode, I was like, right, who played what? I don't think IMDb's even sure. Because there were so many kind of, hey, do you want to do this extra voice? And Kevin was about 10 of them.
Yeah, I think Kevin's got about 100 credits on IMDb.
I'm going to actually look now. I'm going to see what it officially credits him. I don't know who gives them their information, but I'm apparently only a writer on 6 episodes. So
Oh, really?
We replaced you halfway through the series.
apparently.
We brought somebody else in. Sorry.
Sorry, you have to find out this way, Carl.
Okay. Anybody else got anything you want to bring up? While I look this up.
You mentioned temp tracks there. The one thing I really, really like about working with you, Carl, is that you don't give me any temp music and kind of lock me to kind of doing things, which is I've noticed with all the actors, you just let them do their own thing, let them go free with ideas, and you talk about...
I'll have suggestions in like if somebody sent me the voice for Batman and it sounded like bloody...
like an English accent.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll maybe I'll get into that at some point about some of the auditions I got. But yeah, if somebody sent me a voice where it was, I don't know, some camp voice where it was like, "Hi, I'm Batman," I was like, "No." But for the most part, I cast people who knew what they were doing, and I know that you, in case, knew what you were doing in the music department. Maybe I'll be like, if you'd sent me the score and it was like the 60s TV show, we should have had a talk. But you obviously you're on the same page in terms of what the music should be.
Yeah, I was really tempted just to kind of see what alternative versions of the actual series would sound like if I tried, doing the 60s thing or doing it kind of all 80s synth electronica thing to see what it sound like. But yeah, freedom is nice.
Absolutely.
Well, what about you, Carl? I mean, what for you was the biggest challenge working on this show?
Just getting the whole thing together. In terms of, obviously, with this series, it was a case of I had a certain voice, I think, for every character because of how they were drawn and that kind of thing, and it was a huge cast, and I cast it right at the start, and this is something I'm definitely not going to do in the future, because it's happened with X-Men as well, where I'm expecting, okay, I'll get all the scripts out, and everybody will record it all, and it'll all be done and in the bank and ready to go. But of course, that's not what happens, and I send the scripts 2 at a time, and because I've got things going on, and then people have other things going on, and obviously life happens, and just arranging the whole thing to get all the people together, especially after maybe I've cast them 5 months ago, and now their episode's finally coming up to go, hey, by the way, do you still want to do this? Even though I announced it 5 months ago. There was a couple of those with the Riddler and that kind of thing. So I think, if anything, it was a learning experience with this and X-Men Season 2 to say, right, I'll cast for the first 3 episodes and the mains, and then I'll cast for each episode as I go, so that I'm not leaving people waiting too long. Nobody's complained about that or anything. It's just I'm very cognizant of the fact of being like, wow, okay, we started this thing 12 months ago, but finally getting around to an episode you're in. When that happened. But no, again, for me, there was certain times where I wish I had been more attention to detail, where certain lines were missed or things like that. But either you guys would pick up the ball and realise that, or I'd realise it in the editing process and be like, oh, this line's been missing or whatever. So yeah, definitely next time I do an adaptation, I'm going to read the book, 2 or 3 times before I start into it, so I know everything that's going on. Okay, we've got a question from the live chat from Teen Life 101. If you're a mutant, obviously this is okay, a lot. Like all you guys are on the X-Men series as well, so I guess we can cross over. If you're a mutant, what superpower would your superpower be? What would you have if you were a mutant in reality?
Carl, what would you have?
The ability to spontaneously have lots of money, and because that maybe just growing out of my hands or something like that. Because let's face it, every else you'd want in life,
duck-like.
Well, look, everything else you want in life would come from that. Let's face it. We'd have a fantastic
I think
studio.
for me, I would like to have the
budget. Sorry, go on, Gavin.
No, I was just going to say, I think the power of flight would be enough for me. I think the money and everything else would come from that. Believe me.
I like Kilgrave's power on what's that? I like Kilgrave's power on Jessica Jones.
Oh my God, we have okay. So these answers so far, we are all going to be supervillains. Is what's happening here.
Yeah, pretty much. Come on,
I want money. He wants to manipulate people and tell them everything to do, and Kevin wants to fly so he can make money from it.
That's it.
So we'd be a big Legion of Doom, essentially.
Yeah.
There you go.
I have to say, I'm not a very good superhero, so I think my power would be the ability to, set a light like the Human Torch, except that I'm not fireproof.
What?
I want to see a movie about that.
Flame-o! Ow!
A constant burn victim.
Yep. I said I was
in and out of hospitals all the time.
Say that.
That sounds like a fun movie.
Yeah.
For me, I think I just go for super speed. Yeah, and all of the knock-on effect powers, like losing your keys would never be a factor again. It's like, oh no, don't sweat it. I'll just vibrate through the door. Sorted.
Yeah, and I definitely think with Quicksilver and Flash in the most recent media, I think they've super speed's become very popular now.
A good one.
I wouldn't want super speed only because then I have no excuse for being late to things ever again, and I want to take my time.
But with the super speed, you can literally leave it to like the last possible.
They could wait for me. I don't know. I never like being in a rush.
I think I've got another superpower.
What would your superpower be?
The ability to make women slightly annoyed with me.
You're a man. You could do that no matter what.
I was going to say, I wouldn't know the difference in real life.
Are you describing what you're supposed to be or what you think your superpower is?
I think that's the power every man has, and I don't think it's slight. I think it's actually ample.
Great, ample ability.
So these next series are going to be Self-Immolation Man, and I guess every romantic comedy starring Adam Sandler, I guess. Some other.
My friend and I were kicking around bad superpowers for a while, and one of our favorites was basically a guy who was delivering a sofa who fell into a chemical vat.
Where was he delivering the sofa to?
The chemical factory, obviously. And he gets fused to the sofa, but only his arm. Except it's not that cool. Basically, his arm is just part of the sofa.
Oh.
Super stressful. So he has to drag the sofa. It's really heavy for him. You know, it's his arm. The sofa is his arm now, and it's sort of like fleshy sofa. But he can't actually drag it because it's too heavy. So it's it's a challenge.
It's just kind of there.
Super strength.
Superpower. That's just more like a super inconvenience more than anything else.
No, but
Yeah,
he's
the
falling
super
into a chemical vat, so he's like part man, part sofa. Like if someone jumped from a building, they could land on the sofa, but you can't get through doorways, basically.
Constantly moving a sofa.
I have an actual superpower now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, an actual superpower. The power to gently warm a pint of water.
Metal man.
Pyrokinetically
Kettle man,
gently
yeah.
warm a cup of water. So I mean, like, I'd be really handy in the winter, wouldn't I? I mean, like, doing this in your windscreen.
Because
You'd
we
be a
don't
great
have hot
barista,
water
definitely.
taps.
Oh well, it's gently warming. It
It's
doesn't
like lukewarm. It's not like boiling. You can't make.
Yeah, I couldn't make a cup of tea out.
No.
I couldn't like suddenly rescue your thirst or something.
We're somehow coming up with the worst show ever. We've got a guy who now this guy with a sofa on his hand, can he sit on his own sofa?
Well, there's like the logistical element of the joints and everything, so he can't really actually sit on his own arm.
Oh, so if somebody has an emergency to sit down, he's there.
He's there. If he
Not
can
very-
drag the sofa.
yeah, not
Like,
very
it's pretty
fast.
tiresome. He has to take a lot of breaks.
Oh my god.
So,
Well,
Carl,
folks, as much as I'd love to continue to talk about our sofas and our annoying women, I actually unfortunately have to head out. I
it's all
actually have a
good.
whole day ahead of me, unlike folks on the other side of the planet. I am on my way to work because I get to work on
Oh,
Saturday.
gosh.
So it was a
Fun.
pleasure. It was a pleasure talking with everyone. It's good seeing all your faces. It was good seeing.
Yeah, and you, John. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
everyone.
Nice to meet you. We'll hopefully we'll all work together again very, very, very soon.
Always a pleasure, John.
Take care.
Yeah, definitely we're bringing it to a close here. So, Declan, I'll go to you. Any closing thoughts you want to add?
when are we casting Sofa Man?
That'll be my next series.
There's only one worse superhero I've heard of, and that's Arm Fall Off Boy, but that is amazingly hilarious.
Oh,
Just his arm falls off and he hits people with his arm. Which is not creepy in any way, shape, or form, but yeah.
At least you can fit through doorways.
at least he's got the ability to sit on his own arm if he needs
Yeah,
to.
he does. He does have the ability to sit on his own arm. That's handy. No pun intended.
Actually, the
Just
ability to scratch that place right in the middle of your back that's really hard to get. That's
Yeah,
kind of
that'll work too. That'll work too. Declan, any thoughts on the Long Halloween series to wrap up?
It's been a lot of fun to work on. Yeah, just hearing kind of all the characters come to life straight off the pages and being able to write the music for it. Been great.
Absolutely. Kevin, any last thoughts?
Oh, hey, look, it's been one of the big pleasures of my adult life to work on an audio series as a voice actor. I only started this 3 years ago, and it has really been great, just to get work on anything. So, Carl, just thank you, again for casting me, and hope to work with you and everybody else again in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll go to Omri last, since he's the big star. I'll go to Tyree next. How about you?
It's just been really great getting to work on the series and getting to hear everything come to life. And it's been absolutely worth it being like crouched under my blanket to create like the perfect acoustic environment. It's been worth it. Worth it.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why don't you go to Steve next? What about you?
Okay. I do actually have a couple of things. I'd like to touch on a point that Kevin made earlier. I am genuinely amazed at the professionalism that's been brought into the show. Everyone, I mean, just it genuinely is incredible. The level of professionalism and skill from everyone on the show.
I second that.
From Declan's songwriting to all the supporting cast as well. Obviously, we've got Omri there as the main key role, but I mean, the whole supporting cast. If you don't have a good supporting cast, it's not believable.
No,
the listener,
definitely.
just gets snapped out of the story. And as Cal was saying earlier, like, why is that the same voice as that guy and that guy? The skill of everyone involved is really, it's on another level for me. And I'm constantly amazed by that. And I will finish by asking the question that I always ask on these shows, especially seeing as we've come to the end of effectively 2 shows now. Carl, what's next?
I can tell you that casting for the next series, this has been going on since August. I've been writing an original piece, and I've been teasing it today. Like, I'm working on it. I have 2 scripts finally finished, and casting will begin in a week or so for the original piece, and you'll finally all get to see what the hell that thing is that I've been talking about.
I just say the scripts are amazing.
They are pretty cool. They are pretty cool scripts.
Great.
I've had fun working on the different. They've taken on very different. Like, they started in one place, and I'd send them off to everybody. I sent them off to Steve. I sent them off to Declan. I sent them off to John, Mr. John, who's been a voice on a couple of these on this series and X-Men, and I sent them off to. Omri, especially, you were sending me back massive thoughts on each draft, and there was one particular one you sent me where I was like, oh my god, I went off in a completely different direction with it and completely rewrote the first episode, and it came out so much better. Like, and just finding that process of writing, which I've never, like, I've had it on films and stuff I've done in the past, but I've never had it on these kind of things, because obviously my first drafts were what I was adapting from. With Long Halloween, it was just a straight up copy, so it was fine to, I didn't really have much creative chances to take. With X-Men, it was a case of, I've got my first draft, which is basically the source material, and then I'll just do my own version of it. With this, it's been fun of completely changing the characters, going through it, and having completely different ideas for where the story's going to go. And obviously bringing in my old writing partner and that kind of thing, and so yes, that will be coming out very soon.
And what is it called?
Dawnstar.
There you go.
It is an original sci-fi, which is set in sort of the 200 years time, and it's kind of this bleak post-apocalyptic future, but not in a sense of there's been a nuclear thing, just in a sense of, well, this is what would happen if people continued the way they are now, but technology kept going and we didn't blow ourselves up. This is us, not some idealistic future like it is in a lot of these sci-fis, or a really bleak future where we've all died. It's a case of, no, this is a future if the Republicans took over.
We're all still alive, and we're just all assholes still.
Yeah, pretty much. And don't worry, this isn't going to be Battlestar Galactica. The characters are likable. I love that series, but good God, by the end, those characters were not likable anymore. When I first started it, I had a couple of ideas for themes and things. Now the themes have completely kind of taken over of things that I want to say. So hopefully everybody likes it. Omri, to wrap up with you, final thoughts on Long Halloween?
Well, when I finally realized that, okay, let's give Batman a go, and we came to the conclusion that I would play Batman, it was sort of an amazing and terrifying thing because you're joining such a roster, you know, from our more recent history, you know, Adam West, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, Clooney. We can skip Clooney. You know, Christian Bale, and now Ben Affleck. These are some amazing performances. And, of course, Conroy in the animated, David O'Hara more recently. I mean, just some amazing voices and amazing performances. And to be able to actually, at the end of the day, say, I'm Batman, you know, it's just...
That was cool.
It's fun.
Absolutely. Again, for me, it was just a case of this was a thing that I wanted to do. A thing that, and I've said this on the other show, kind of backstories that we've done, a case of I just randomly put up a thing on Casting Call Pro and it's created this entire thing now. You know, who knows what happens or where it goes, and thank you to the guys at Rivalcast for hosting us. As I've posted up on the Facebook group recently, we will be switching to their feeds exclusively in the near future, switching away from the old Podomatic feeds. I'll let you know what's going on with that. So, yeah, it's a case of see what happens. The sky's the limit, and so long as it's fun, it's fun. And I'm so happy and glad for everybody did such a superb job. I think you get better as you do things, and I think this being our third series, I think this X-Men has got better as it's gone on, I think this is the series where we came in with all cylinders. Firing straight away. Every character was just spot on. When you'd hear the character, you'd be like, "Yeah, that's Batman. That's Jim Gordon. That's right down to Vernon, or Sophia, or you can read the book along with this now. I think we've created kind of this weird audio book, but it's also its own thing, and it's also a motion comic. It's and I think that's why a lot of people are enjoying it. You can like it and enjoy it in a lot of different ways. So I'm glad that people are enjoying it. A guy very helpfully on a different YouTube channel put together the entire thing into one long movie. I did send him a message and saying, excuse me, could you just put my name on this? Because originally he just posted it up as if it was his own video. But he was nice enough to do that, to give me a shout out. So definitely, if you want to see the whole thing, rather than just go from playlist to playlist with the opening credits, you can watch the whole thing as a movie on his channel, which I'm forgetting right now. Anyway, yes, so thank you everybody for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for sending in with all the technical difficulties tonight. Hangouts just was not cooperating, but finally we got it working. And we found out it obviously was my webcam that was causing the problems since I to shut it off with just come back on. So, oh my god, the dog's turned into an anime girl.
You saw that?
Oh my god.
I didn't want to comment because Carl was on a roll. I was like, has everyone else noticed?
Steve, I want you to do a monologue so we can see your voice coming out of that character model.
Am I not kawaii, Des? Am I not cute enough for you, Carl?
That's weird. I'm sorry.
Do you not find me attractive in this form?
That'll be in my head for a little while.
It's going to give me nightmares.
And that's my other superpower. Thank you and good night. Ability to give people nightmares.
Thank you everybody for joining me, and thank you for such superb work on the entire series. Honestly, the entire cast, the ones who aren't here as well, they all sent their hellos and things, and we'll be carrying on with X-Men and of course the new series very soon. Thank you everybody.
And one final shout out. Support Declan and buy his CD.
Buy a CD. Yes.
That'd do good.